Hey guys, it might look like a boring rook ending, right? But actually, there's one key principle that I'm going to share with you that if you learn this, you will instantly become a better rook endgame player. And it's not that hard. People just, for whatever reason, don't think about this when they're playing and they miss easy opportunities, okay? This is game number 5 in a series where we're going through this book, Capablanca's Best Chess Endings. As usual, I'm going to start at the beginning, show you how we ended up in this position, and then I'm going to give you the secret principle that once you learn it, just will make you that much better, all right? So Kappa plays a London. Nothing really fancy in the opening here. They trade the bishops. Black plays e5. They trade these knights. He throws in a check. They end up trading a bunch of stuff here, the bishop, then the queens, and then finally the knights. And this is pretty common. Like, this is how a lot of games go, especially if you're a low-rated player. Like, you just kind of trade pieces, and you might find yourself in a position just like this, where it's like, okay, what do I do now? You ready for the secret principle, guys? The player with the most active rooks, rook or rooks, usually is the winner. Like in 9 times out of 10, the player with the most active rook is the winner, and the player that doesn't have the active rook is the losing side, okay? And you're probably thinking, well, of course, Nelson, but how do you do that? Well, that's what we're going to talk about for the rest of the lesson. So now that you know that principle, though, I'm going to give you 2 moves. One of them Capablanca played, one he did not play. I want you to try to pause the video and predict which one do you think he played. Option number 1, he played rook d4. Option number 2, he played rook to g1. Which one do you think he played in this position? All right, if you had a chance to look at that, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say a lot of you probably said rook to g1. And I'll go ahead and tell you, when I was looking at this game and just kind of brainstorming moves, this one seemed pretty logical to me. And the reason is because there's a principle that you want your rooks to be on open files, or if there aren't open files, half open files. This is a half open file for white, and this is a half open file for white. So it makes sense that, okay, maybe I'll put my rook here. However, when you think in terms of the most active rook, is this really an active rook? Well, you could make the argument that, yeah, I mean, it's controlling all of these squares. Cool, sure, yes. But is this an easy target for you to like really capture at any point in the future? Not really. I mean, the king's doing a good job of defending it. If it pushes up to here, then it's even more defended by a pawn. Like, I'm not going to be able to take that anytime soon with my rook. So even though it looks active, it's not really effective, right? Now, the next part of this principle, okay, the next part of this key idea is that if you're trying to get your rooks as active as possible, that means you can't let your opponent get their rooks as active as possible, okay? So if you look at Black's last move, they just played this rook over here. What do you think they're about to play next? That's correct. They want to push this pawn, because if we do play this random move, let's just say rook g1, this is the wrong move, by the way. Okay, Kappa played rook d4. We'll talk about why in just a second. I am talking about why. Black could play f4 here. And guess what? You don't want to take this. Look at this. These are really ugly pawns. They're going to take, they have this, they have this, they have this threat. Look at how active Black's rooks are. These rooks are amazing. Meanwhile, our rooks are just like doing nothing. Okay? And if we try to, after they go here, push by, they say, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, again, who has the most active rook? Now, you could argue, okay, we have rook d7, but Black can very easily play rook f7 and deal with that threat, right? And there's not much for us to do there. So Black's rook is very active. They're coming here. This pawn could be annoying here, right? So now that you know that, okay, we want our rooks to be active. We don't want to let our opponent have active rooks. So what does Capablanca play? Rook d4, because he understands Black wants to play f4 themselves. But now if you play f4, what is he going to do? He plays e4. And now when you take, there is no rook takes e4. He was defending that, and guess what? Now it's White's rook whose is the most active. It's going to start taking all the pawns. You guys see that? That one subtle little thing stops what Black was trying to do, and that is why this was such a powerful move, because he understood that concept. Like, I cannot allow my opponent's rooks to be active. I'm going to stop it with rook to d4 because I see that they want to play f4. You guys understand? Like, if you understand that, it's going to make all your other decisions when you play rook endings so much easier, because all you have to do is ask yourself the question, is the move that I want to play going to help my rooks become more active or not? And if you get that right, you're a better player already, okay? So let's keep going with the game. Black plays rook to f6. And this brings me to another critical principle. When you're trying to come up with a plan at the end of the game in these rook endings, I want you to identify the weakest spot in your opponent's position. So if you guys want to pause, what do you think the weakest spot in black's position is right now? All right, if you had a chance to look at that, I would say it's this pawn over on a7. This is an isolated pawn. It's kind of off by itself. The king can't support it. No other pawns can support it, right? That's the weakest spot. Everything else, I mean, this is defended, right? This is defended. This is defended. These are all together so they can kind of help each other. There's also the king there helping. The rooks obviously are the most powerful pieces, so I wouldn't say that's weak. So this is it, right? You say, well, that's great, but I can't get there, Nelson. Well, maybe you can, and maybe you just have to figure out a way to do it. So here, Capablanca plays b3. And he's saying, look, if you let me, I'm going to just take you and win a pawn. But if you trade, even though I got rid of your doubled pawns, more importantly, guess what? He opened up the A file to attack the weakest spot in black's camp. A very simple move, right? And if you ask yourself that question, where's the weak spot? You could probably come up with this move b3 yourself. It's not really that hard, right? So that's what he's doing. Like, it's that simple. So we get this. Black plays king f7. He decides to go ahead and just centralize his king, and then he brings the rook over. Okay, so remember earlier we talked about rook g1. It wasn't really a good target. This is a much better target because it's a lot weaker. Okay, and so he's really prioritizing the absolute best squares for his rooks. All right, so Capablanca's opponent plays king e6. We get rook to a6, and again, keeping that principle in mind, where's the most active place I can put my rook? The rook's pretty good here. Rook a6 is even better. And that rook that wasn't doing anything on f1 is now like the best rook on the board. Look at this. Look at this. Is very annoying for black. So he goes to defend. Rook to a4. And what move do you think black played in this position? All right, if you had a chance to look at that, a lot of you probably said rook here, right? Because you could see that there's two rooks attacking the pawn. The only way to defend it is to go here, right? And try to hold on. The reason he did not play that, he played the move g5. There is another principle I want you guys to remember. You never want to have your rooks babysitting pawns if at all possible. Like if you have any other option, you should probably take it. Defending a pawn is like the last resort. Okay, like if you have to play this move, you're basically saying, yeah, I'm in trouble. Like this game is probably going to end badly for you. Like that. You're just accepting that. So black in this position instead says, no, I'm not going to accept that. He probably asked himself the same question that Capablanca just did. Where's the weakest spot in white's position? Aha, it's over here. Okay, how can I deal with that? G5 is actually setting up to attack this because he's thinking to himself, takes, rook h6, and guess what? Now white's going to lose the pawn, and he defends this, and now it's not so simple. I mean, you could try to come over here, but then he just defends, and you could try to come back here, but then he goes king e5, and he's defending, and he's being annoying, and black is back in this game, right? And it's equal, according to the engine. And the reason he didn't go there right away, I guess, is because now white could play h4, and now you can't play g5, you just simply lose a pawn, and you still have the problem over here, right? So basically, he's setting up to go on the offensive, in this position. He's setting up to go on the offensive with rook h6, so that he doesn't have to be defensive and guard his pawns with his rooks, right? Because that's very bad. Okay, so always look for those other opportunities to do anything else. All right, so here Capablanca obviously realizes what's going to happen if he goes for this route and instead plays the move h4. And now he's basically saying, look, if you take me and I take back, I've eliminated my weakness. Now all my pawns are together by my king, which is great. And black is the one who has two weaknesses. He's going to be stuck, defending them. Very bad situation for black, okay? So that's a very clever move. So black says, no, I don't want to do that. I'll play g4. And here, kind of a tricky moment, I would say. But what do you think Kappa played? All right, if you had a chance to look at that, he actually played the move king to e2. And this brings me to the next principle here, which is when you have an advantage, which clearly, white does. You've got the rooks looking great over here. You've got black defending. When you have that, you do not want to give them counterplay if possible, right? So for example, if you just simply take this and you think to yourself, okay, I'll take, he'll take, I'll take, that's fine. Well, wait a second. Now they're going to take here. And all of a sudden, this rook that was really defensive, it's very active now. You have to worry about this. You have to worry about this. You have to worry about maybe in some cases the king comes up and this pawn pushes. That's actually a checkmate because the king is cutting off your escape square, right? So all of a sudden, black has a lot of counterplay in a position that was very bad for them. So that is why, you know, Capablanca's like, no, I'm not going to just trade and make your life easy and let your rook come in. So he plays king e2, right? Now, next important point, and this did not happen in the game. In the game, black, you know, captured here. But I want to ask you guys the question, what if black would have played rook h6 going after the pawn? What was Capablanca's idea here? If you had a chance to look at that, this brings me to the next thing, which is very important. But tactics are very valuable in rook endings, but they're usually unexpected and kind of pop up out of nowhere. Okay, so what do I mean by this? It looks like we're losing the pawn. It looks like, okay, the pawn is gone. We can't defend it this way. We can't defend it with our rook or king. Okay, we're gonna lose the pawn. Maybe we take something instead, right? Look at how the advantage totally disappears for black. I mean, sorry, for white. The advantage for white disappears. Now it's in equal position. So if that's the best you can find, you're in trouble. So what would Kappa have done? He was going to take this because guess what? There is a tactic here, check, and the rook all of a sudden is going to come over and win the free rook. A tactic was hiding in the position that actually defended his pawn. But if you miss that, you would probably just go down this line and your advantage is gone. Okay, so the key thing to remember is look for these little tricky tactics with these rook endings. And if you find them, usually you're going to be surprising your opponent, right? So I think a lot of people, if played this, might not even realize what's going on. Or even if they do and they take you, well, great. You've now saved your pawn and everything is good. Your rook is extremely active. You've got it defended. You got a pass pawn here. Everything is great. Okay? So those tactics pop up out of nowhere. You have to be aware. Now, that didn't happen in the game. In the game, black took here and white recaptured. All right, so black brings the rook back, finally, basically saying, okay, I've got to defend, even though it's bad. And actually, the engine says rook h6, just trying to be more aggressive, would have been a better try. But in the game, they went back. And here, Capablanca actually makes a mistake. And I want you guys to try to identify why you think it's a mistake. So he played the move king e2. And if you watch that eval bar, it kind of dips down a bit. Why is this a mistake? Why is king e2 a mistake? If you had a chance to pause and think about that, the reason is another principle at the end of the game is that the active king is very, very good. And Kappa actually misses an opportunity here to activate his king. Now, I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know why he wanted to avoid this. I'm not sure the reason. But this is the Stockfish approved method for even a bigger advantage. Okay, bring the king forward. Maybe, he was worried about this, but Stockfish says you just play f3, you take that away, and you're fine. And the king being here is very valuable because the rook has to kind of watch that you don't sneak in here. The king has to stay, otherwise you're going to sneak in here. And by the way, you're just constantly pressuring that pawn. And as an example, if black just kind of tries to do nothing, you're going to play this, you're going to push, you're going to come up, and at some point you're going to be able to get a position like this, where the king doesn't want to come here because you lose the pawn. And if you go away, he's going to go check and then eventually take the pawn. And now you've got these guys which are marching down the board, and you could see how that was a weakness because the king was there. So remember, active king is better. Like I said, I don't know what Kappa was thinking, why he didn't go for that. Instead, he went a different route, but that would have been the absolute best way to finish this game. Okay. Instead, we get king e2, b4, h5, f4. He's kind of trying to set up some sort of a Zugzwang situation where black has no moves. He's just clamping down, which is nice, but not as strong as Stockfish said, just bringing the king. So black goes here, king d3. You do a little back and forth, and Kappa tries to bring the king up, and then rook to g2. Now, what is black's idea with rook to g2? All right, if you had a chance to look at that, hopefully you noticed there is a checkmate threat on d2. Okay, if white is not paying attention and tries to take a pawn, oops, checkmate. I mean, this is kind of wild, right? Look at that. The pawn is controlling these squares, the king, and then the pawns are there, right? So always pay attention. You never know when you might just get checkmated in one move in a rook ending, right? You got to pay attention. So we get the rook comes back. He's trying to force this rook to make a decision. And we get this. sorry, wait. Back to the game. Hold on. I'm all over the place here. This is what happened in the game. Yeah, this is what I want to talk to you guys about. Okay. I don't know why black did this. I think if they just go back and say, okay, I'm just going to sit here and wait and force white to figure out something, that probably would have been a better try. But they decided to go here instead and traded off these rooks. Okay. And then they played rook e7, which again, I don't really understand what black was doing here. I don't know if they were like mentally tired, if they were just, I don't know. But another principle is when you have control of an open file in an endgame, you don't want to give that up usually, right? And that's exactly what black does. They're just like, here you go, take the file if you want it. And Capablanca's like, well, thank you very much. I think I will do that. And then he ends up winning the game very easily from here. If black instead would have said, look, you know what? Let me go rook g1, and I'll just offer this trade because now I can do some annoying checks and sneak over here and take this pawn. Look at the advantage for white is basically gone, right? It's not that simple for white to figure out what to do. You're going to lose this, and you have to worry about this pawn, and the king is in a good position to stop these, and like it's not that easy. So this is what black should have done. Keep control of the file. Like, why did you just give it up? I don't know what black was thinking, and that was a very bad mistake. And now it's easy for Kappa. He comes over, he invades with the rook. You can see how active this rook is. Remember we talked about earlier? It's going to attack everything from here, right? And so we get some back and forth, but black couldn't really do anything. And eventually, I think this is where the game ended. Capablanca wins. So the key takeaway, guys, the most active rook wins. I mean, look at this final position. Look how active white's rook was compared to black's. Black's rook is there, but it's not really doing anything, right? If you can get active rooks, you're going to be in good shape, all right? Make sure you remember all those other principles, all the little details that go along with that. Thank you guys for sticking with me. Click over here for the playlist to catch up on the other lessons, and I'll see you guys in game number 6 next time. Stay sharp, play smart, take care.